Okay, we're good to go. Hare Krishna.
Jai, Hare Krishna. So good to be with everybody on this like last Ekadashi of the year. Um, and nothing could be more auspicious. So of course we'll start with our Mangala Charana, bringing in even more auspiciousness. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So as I was saying, it's so wonderful to be with everybody on this kind of last Ekadashi, which is, um, it's kind of a loosely said, uh, oftentimes. And as I was thinking about which personality, what topic, all of those things about this particular Ekadashi lecture, I was kind of thinking about the new year, the concept of this new year and time passing, and what is the new year for us. And I was kind of thinking about a lecture that my Guru Maharaj, Radhat Maharaj, gave on the subject, the festival of a new year. And it was in 1999 to 2000. So this whole millennium changing, everything moving. The environment at that time, everybody was a little bit in anxiety about this new millennium, what that would mean for computers. Would we all shut down? Would everything go offline? Would everybody go off the grid and nobody would be connected? What would happen? So they had a entire program in India at that time, and they asked my Guru Maharaj to speak for several days. And he was speaking about the subject of the new year. And he was saying that, this new year concept is very interesting. While we have kind of all agreed upon this December 31st to January 1st New Year worldwide as a way of marking time, so many people have New Year's throughout the year, right? Different cultures, every culture has their idea of the new year. And it usually doesn't even coincide with this new year that we've agreed upon modernly. Um, so he was saying that for Vaishnavas, Gaur is actually our new year. Even astrologically, that whole March, April area within the sign of Aries, whenever the sun moves, that's like the new year astrologically. Right? For Vaishnavas, we have Gaur which kind of coincides with that whole time. This time of spring and rejuvenation and renewal, that's a new year. So it kind of seems very interesting that we have this new year during this time when everything kind of like powers down. Everything kind of goes dark and goes to sleep. And I was saying that January is my least favorite month in New York. It's like January, February. That time is kind of just like, it's like filled with struggle. It's really, really cold, sometimes colder than Russia. The weather, it can't decide on what it really wants to do. It's kind of wet and miserable and snowy, and snow in New York is pretty for 5 minutes and then it's dirty. right? So it's kind of like, it's like beautiful for 30 seconds, and then it's just gray the rest of the time, and like brown and various colors of nothing fun. So you've got this time period where there aren't even that many festivals.
If she's gay.
We have usually every month we have something to look forward to. We have all of these wonderful now it's like dry season. We've got to somehow make hope for ourselves until like we have Nityananda Trayodashi, and then we start bringing in these new festivals again, right? But there's a whole like month or so in there where it's really a struggle, and it kind of shows us who we are. So I think it's very interesting that we have this concept of a new year during the time when I like it the least in New York. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna wisely saying, winter and summer seasons. This passing of time. A sober person, put that in quotes, is not bewildered by such a change. He's speaking to Arjuna, who was honestly bewildered by such a change at this point. Right? At the point he's speaking it, Arjuna was bewildered. We're all bewildered. I'm bewildered every winter. Every winter, I go into deep bewilderment. And I feel as though I want to do nothing. And this pandemic, which kind of keeps doing this cyclical thing, seems to be doing the same thing to all of us. We've gone into unprecedented times, right? And we've got this entire passage of time. And so these few days are a great opportunity to have a review. Reviews, whenever we were in school, right, and we'd get like report cards, progress reports, I was always in anxiety. And whenever they'd have parent-teacher conferences and they'd have like situations where it's like, okay, let's review how your child did, I was always in anxiety. Somehow or other, I was never confident enough to understand that it's okay. Like, I've actually put in the work and done the thing. Like, my mind always jumped to, yeah, but like, what about those 3 things that I missed? Like, what about all the things that I didn't get right? So reviews were never like fun for me. I was like, let's just look forward. It happened. Let's leave that back there. But we're forced into having these moments of review. What happens when we get to these situations where we have to go into life review? Are we able to sincerely have a life review? Are we able to really look at our progress and look at both sides of the progress, right? Because for me, those verses where Sri Krishna speaks about this matra sparsashta kunteya sitoshna sukadu, like all of this happiness and distress comes like winter and summer seasons, and we have to be sober-minded and balanced and equipoised and all of these, like, what does that mean? Those were some of the first verses that we learned in Sunday school. So lines I've been reciting since I was 6, 7, 8 years old. What does it mean though? What does that look like? Recently, somebody had asked me a question on humility. How can we be more humble? And I said, well, let me volley a question back to you. What does humility mean? Give me a definition. So as I look at these actual verses, then I'm like, okay, but what does that actually mean? Have I just been regurgitating? Have I just been repeating like a parrot, which does still give benefit? Or have I actually been imbibing the essence of what these verses really mean? And then what does that actually mean for me? What does it mean for the course of my realizations in the course of my life? Recently, I've been kind of thinking about this idea of happiness and distress, winter and summer seasons. What if being balanced doesn't mean to act as though it doesn't affect us? What if it doesn't mean to simply just rise above as though nothing has any effect on any of us? What if it actually means to be present in both? What if it's no longer about us running from the discomfort? Because honestly, that's at least what I wind up doing, right? This transcendentalism. To transcend all these things means I run away from the discomfort as much as possible. And then I try to make it equal when things are comfortable. I try and give myself all the justifications. But really, I'm still just running from the discomfort. So what if it means to be present in both? What if the review is no longer to just run away from the mistakes, but to actually sit in those moments and say, okay, this happened. This occurred. Now what do I do? I'm in a situation. Now what do I do? I'm running up on January, the same January that I don't like. But now I'm here. So what do I do? Do I continue to hibernate and pretend like it doesn't exist? Or do I find a way to make January work? Until we get to March, April, May, all the fun months, and we make those work too. So what if this transcendence is to become more present instead of more impersonal? Because, right, this whole idea of bhakti yoga is for us to become less impersonal, more personal. For us to become more personal, we have to have a personality. We must have characteristics. We must have qualities. Our Supreme Person has qualities and characteristics and big personality. So what if we are meant to be present in each of those moments and taking shelter in each of those moments, grasping for shelter in all of those moments? What if this is how we weather the winter and summer seasons, the happiness and distress? Because everybody's going to want happiness. To say that we get to a point where we don't desire it kind of seems like a fool's journey. Seems a little naive and a little bit insincere, at least for me, and inauthentic to say, you know what, I'm going to get to a place where the happiness means nothing to me. Let's all be real. The happiness is what I'm after, right? The happiness is going to mean a lot to me. And usually I'm trying to get through the disappointing times so I can get back to the more happy times. What if I'm present? I was having a conversation with a friend just yesterday, and they were saying, you know, I realized that this whole COVID situation came and kind of stole Christmas again. And I thought, you know, for a minute there, I really did have that realization on Christmas. I had two families with COVID. They are fine. Thank you. And then the rest of everybody else had colds. I had a cold. Everybody had a cold. So everybody kind of spent Christmas separated, FaceTiming each other, trying to figure out, like, how do we make this thing work in a situation where everybody was supposed to be together? Okay, so what do I do with that? It's a situation that I was not looking forward to. It was unexpected. Nobody really wanted it. What do I do with that? What do we do? And on Christmas, I remember saying to my sister, because I said, you know, I was like, nobody wanted this. But you know what? I'll take it. Because the year before was tragic. I was in fear for family members' lives. My dad had been horribly besieged by COVID at the time, and we were really afraid that he wasn't going to be around this Christmas. So I said, you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it, because right now I remember. Eventually life will do its thing. And it'll push back the memories so that they're not so sharp. But right now, while the memories are still sharp, I'll take it. If it means that I FaceTime him, I'll take it, because he's still here. If it means that I'm going to FaceTime my mom and my brother and everybody else, and we'll open presents and show them to each other on a camera, I'll take it. Because the alternative stung so much more. So even when it was unexpected, even when there was a reversal, somehow or other there was the counterbalance, right? So the happiness and distress. It was that counterbalance, which starts to show us who we are. This pandemic has been the counterbalance to life, to show us who we are. Who are we when we get into a situation where our spirituality doesn't look the same? Our friends and family don't look the same. Our communities don't look the same. The way we connect to one another doesn't look the same. Who are we then? What kind of devotees are we then? What do we choose to focus on then? This is kind of what I feel like it means to examine our lives sincerely. To kind of take that year and say, okay, who am I now? Who am I and who do I want to be moving forward? This is exemplified by the Vaishnavacharya, who now we can only talk about briefly. But who better to really think about when we talk about examining our lives than the great professor himself, Maharaj Parikshit. His very name means that he's an examiner. Right? From the time he was in the womb, things were not easy. There is a deadly weapon that comes for him that has the ability to kill the child in the womb, they say, without hurting the mother, even though it seemed like she was feeling some discomfort. According to the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, she was running in fear. She felt such a great heat. She felt this discomfort. She felt all of these anxiety, everything. There's a great, great weapon coming for him. Srimad Bhagavatam says that weapon actually already kind of destroyed the body of the child within the womb. Krishna comes, saves the child, saves the soul of the child, and has to give a new body. But that one glimpse of the Supreme Person, even within the womb, even covered over, even with all of these obstacles in the way, right? Child in the womb, eyes aren't always so fully formed, all of these things, but that one glimpse of that Supreme Person with a chakra and a club and a lotus and a conch and beautiful attributes, that one glimpse was enough. The child was named Parikshit because he was constantly examining, looking for, are you that person that saved me? Are you that person that saved me once upon a time? I saw him. I know he has to be there. In this regard, I kind of think about those moments where Krishna consciousness really hits us. Right? We have those moments where Krishna consciousness really, it hits differently. Maybe once, maybe twice, maybe if we're lucky, it's happened more than once, where we see the deities and we think, oh, I feel it. Today, that's it. Or where we first hear the Mahamantra and we think, whoa, that's it. Or we first hear a kirtan and we think, that's it. Can that one moment be enough to spur us on for the rest of our lives? For Maharaj Parikshit, that one moment, that was it. That one moment in a state where he was even covered over. And when we think about what does this life mean for us? Who am I? What am I doing here? Maharaj Parikshit is faced with these very same questions, and were it not for him, honestly sitting down in a situation that he did not ask for, right? I don't think that when he was out hunting after having taken care of the entire planet, I do not think that he was asking to have one situation where he commits one mistake which effectively causes the very end of his existence, like the end of his life. Faced with 7 days, that's it. 1 week. But he's honest and sincere enough to sit and say, okay, what do I do? My Guru Maharaj was giving a lecture on that topic, kind of. And he spoke about Maharaj Parikshit, and he was saying, this was kind of embarrassing. There was a sense of shame. He was the emperor of the world. He had just, told off Kali. That's a big deal. I guarantee you, if any of us had seen the personification of any yuga, right, I don't think we would have the wherewithal to be so, the conversation that is had. When I look at it in Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm like, I would not be having this conversation with all of these advanced thoughts, and thought processes. Usually I'd just freak out, like, whoa. Right? And not only does he have a conversation with Kali, but now he's going to have a conversation with Dharma and the goddess of the earth. If any of us, even in a dream, right? We're minding our business, going on about our lives. And then in a dream, let's say the goddess of the earth, Bhumi Devi, Dharmaraj, Yamaraj, they come to us and they go, you know what? You're the chosen one. We believe in you. It's like real Matrix, like you are Neo. Like what? Are we really equipped? Are we honestly equipped to deal with the gravity of that situation? I'm not. But this is Maharaj Parikshit. So, when I think about it, because sometimes I can get lost in the conversations, right? It goes in Srimad Bhagavatam and I'm like, what are we talking about? Religiosity and spirituality and how it fits and occupations and the soul's dharma and this dharma and that. And I'm always like, what are we talking about? And then I kind of, let me step back. Let me zoom out for a second and remember this man is having a conversation with the personification of religiosity. How? And then after all of that, he has the wherewithal, not to stay stuck in the shame and the guilt and all of these things that would come upon me if I had committed a mistake like that, right? Now, one might think, you're the emperor of the world. He could have just done a whole cover up, hidden the whole thing, and said, you know what? We're going to forget this ever happened. After all, he's like, Shringi is a little boy. What can the curse of a little boy do, really? From the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, we now have a king who says, okay, this has happened. Now what? And not only does he let go of the shame and the guilt and all of those things, but now he has the wherewithal to then say, I'm in such a state that I don't even have the answers. Someone help. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Just from the perspective of human psychology, I make mistakes now. I'm all like, let's not talk about it. Let's pretend it didn't happen. I'm always, you know what? I will look for answers on my own, in private, alone, with a book. And then I'll just journal out the answers. And no one will ever have to know about the things that I'm struggling with. Maharaj Parikshit now puts his struggle on display for the rest of eternity. Bhagavatam is filled with people who have made a decision to say, let my struggle be an example. Let my struggle be an example for miracles, blessings, Krishna's mercy. And it doesn't even end there. He hears Bhagavatam, and then at the moment where it's like last moments, one would think, you kind of just want to go in solitude, have a private moment, think to yourself, review some more, right? Examine our lives sincerely. His mother comes to him and says, can you tell me the essence of everything you've learned? Maharaj Parikshit doesn't say, Mom, okay, look, right now, I'm the one facing the big thing, the hurdle, right? I'm looking in the face of death. You could cut me some slack. Let me have a moment. He doesn't say that at all. He embarks on a tale that gives us hope and encouragement and enlivens us and is one of the greatest works next to Bhagavatam that we have in our Krishna consciousness. So we have Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we have Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which you would think, you'd think he'd give her the Cliff Notes version, like the summary, okay, here we go. No problem, Mom. I'll tell you the whole essence. There's 9 cantos, right? There's king, there's Puranjan, there's all these allegories and analogies, there's metaphors, there's conversations and conversations and conversations. Maharaj Parikshit tells a completely different story. Several completely different stories. Within all of those stories are the essences of all of the lessons that he's learned from Shukadeva Goswami, but they're completely different stories. This is actual realization. To hear something and to take your mental notes, and then to ask pertinent questions on what you heard, right? To ask those pertinent questions, because now modern psychology tells us that's how you actively listen. This is active listening, right? To say, okay, I understand. You've said this. Now to ask a pertinent follow-up question, this is active listening. We have people giving whole workshops on it. But Maharaj Parikshit was able to somehow imbibe this. This is 5,000 years ago, right? In a forest. Not comfortable. Not eating, not sleeping, not drinking, 7 days. With the fear of God, with the fear of death looming. So he's asking pertinent questions. Then he's listening for the answers, while also feeling this lightning within his heart. Then, not only is he able to summarize things, but he's able to give realizations and teach to somebody else in a way that they can understand it. What I love about Brihad Bhagavatamrita is that it's just filled with stories. Filled with stories. And there's some philosophy, but it's mostly filled with stories. Conversations. One story after another. And this always to me was such a prime example of the differences in preaching and understanding nuances in expressing. Sometimes I hate to say preaching, because really, I'm not here to tell you something you don't already know. Right now, I'm just here to share what has resonated with my heart so much that it helped me. So this is the nuances, the differences in sharing. Maharaj Parikshit knows his audience. Once, one of my friends asked me, they said, I have a girlfriend, and they were Krishna conscious. The girlfriend was new to Krishna consciousness, right? So they said, I can't figure out how to preach to her. I was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I can't really figure out, I just can't, I don't know. I've been trying to tell her the philosophy and do all this stuff, and I can't figure it out. I was like, tell her a story. Like, Really? Just tell her stories. Tell her your favorite stories. And then let that do its work. Speaking from a female-minded brain this time around, I love stories. I love a good story. Sometimes when it gets a little bit heavy with the philosophical things and the workings of the universe, like when we get to time and how that breaks down and things, I zone right out. But give me a story. I'm there the whole way through. Even if it's a metaphor and an allegory and we're going to insert all of our realizations, give me a good story. I'm there. This is what Maharaj Parikshit does for his mother. In his last moments, he gives her story after story after story after story, which just shows he's like, but look at how amazing our Krishna is. And you knew him. You were personally saved by him. My father knew him. My grandfather knew him. This is our family. Look at how amazing our family is. The whole universe is vying for the attention of our family member, but you and I, we were personally saved. So now, being stuck in a situation that he did not want, he's able to figure out a way to find the greatest blessings. And all because he had the wherewithal to honestly and sincerely examine his life. So now, as we come to the end of 1 year and journey into another year, which doesn't feel like much. It's just like moving from one day to another. Close your eyes, and you open your eyes, and it's another day. Maybe our spiritual paths are not so different. When we look at it, and we think about our lives, right? Birth and death are really interesting things. I still remember the whole giving birth aspect, and that's where I think that sometimes the body of a woman comes equipped with a lot of really interesting lessons. And if you are a woman and you happen to give birth to another human being at some point, it's a really profound experience, because you've got to look that line in the face. Like, you've got to walk that tightrope. And I remember thinking, people have been giving birth since the beginning of time. So I kind of used that to give myself some sort of encouragement. Look, millions of people before you have done this. It's fine. And then in my mind, because this is what my mind does, it shot back. Yeah. And some of those people didn't make it. And so then I thought, I was like, oh, interesting. Millions of people have been doing this, so I should think that I can do this, but also some of those people didn't make it, and I'm not in control of any of this. None of it makes sense. You cannot tell me. Doctors will tell you how it happens, but nobody tells you why and who set this up. It does not, none of it makes any sense to me. It's like, well, we are going to incubate a watermelon within another human, which was usually not equipped to hold a full watermelon, but we're going to incubate it nonetheless. And then, if anybody has ever, I want you to give yourselves an exercise, and especially the guys, right? Guys, I want you to give yourselves an exercise, and it's to everybody, but I really feel like, sometimes it can slip your mind if you're not in a female body this time around. Just measure out 10 centimeters. It's not a lot. 10 centimeters is not a very big space. It's not. And that's about how much space you've got. 10 centimeters. Now, eject this watermelon, this 6, 7, 8 pound watermelon from this 10 centimeter space. Go, do the things. It doesn't make any sense. When it happened, it didn't make sense. When I thought about it, it didn't make sense. I had to not think about it because none of it made sense. And at that moment, I thought, well, I've got one option. Surrender. That is it. There is no other option but surrender, because the baby has to happen. So now, what does this surrender look like? Really, I had to sit and think, okay, Govinda, it's you and me. Whatever happens, it's you and me. And on the other side of this, it's going to be a new day. Luckily, everybody came out on the other side fine. It was fine. Totally okay. But that really, I was like, no, that feels like what the idea of a new year is supposed to be. Right? This idea of like, oh, it's a new year, it's a new dawn, it's a new day, all these things. And I'm like, that kind of seems really tame compared to what new days really feel like. And if anybody then has gone through a near-death experience, you really come out the other side thinking, oh, yeah, no, it's different. But that idea of surrender stayed with me, because still Krishna was there. Whether I would have made it out or not, Krishna was still going to be there. And so I have to remember that surrender is not just, I made it out and everything is fine and I'm happy again. Surrender is Krishna's going to be there. Krishna's blessings will be there. Whether I think I made it out or not, Krishna's blessings will always be there. Because Maharaj Parikshit didn't make it out, right? The actual goal of his surrender was to figure out a way to deal with what happens when you have to go to the other side of this whole situation. Krishna's blessings and mercy were still there. And he used all of those final moments in review, sincerely, authentically, to give us these lessons that I hope and pray never leave us. Cantos and cantos of stories, realizations, and then his very own realizations that he then tells to his mother. To examine our lives sincerely is to say that, you know what, Krishna's mercy never, ever, ever leaves me. Even when I think I don't deserve it. Even when I think I shouldn't have it. Even when I'm sure I don't deserve it. Krishna's mercy is still there. So I'm so grateful that all of us have made it to this point, into another year, hopefully. But even if we didn't, let's look at the blessing. Let's look at the example of those that we've lost. There have been so many that we've lost, and it's painful. But once someone asked me, they said, how do we look at this virus, which has effectively done a massive purge of so much? How do we look at that when some of us have lost spiritual masters? When some of us have lost spiritual companions and guides and the people that we hold dear? How do we look at this? What is this? I said, yeah, it's rough. But look at what happened. Because those people left. Because Krishna decided, no, taking him back. It's mine now. There were days and days and days of nonstop chanting. It showed us who we are. The internet was filled with the sounds of the holy name. At those times when everybody was the most in anxiety, you could click anywhere and there was a kirtan happening. There was japa happening. Somebody was speaking, somebody was praying, somebody was chanting, somebody was talking. The sound of the holy names was reverberating throughout this world with the use of the internet, which could be the most evil thing that any of us have ever seen. Right? The internet could be the most extensive agent of Kali that we've ever seen. Also, it could be our greatest weapon against Kali. This internet has done this. Now, for every Ekadashi, we've been coming together. That plague of a pandemic, which cast a dark shadow over all of us, has actually brought us some of the greatest sunshine, some of the brightest spots, some of the best hope to cling to, for me, have been these gatherings right here. So sometimes when I look at the year in review, I'm like, I'll take it. I'm here for another Ekadashi. I'll take it. I'm here for another opportunity to chant the holy names. I'll take it. Because we've been through so much. But we're still here. We're still here. I'm not sure if that makes us lucky or what, but we're still here. So while we're here, let's take it. Let's take every opportunity. And let's remember that what it means to examine our lives is, sure, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be guilt. There's going to be shame. But there's also going to be mercy. There's going to be Krishna's mercy, Krishna's love, and Krishna's compassion with us at every step. This is the example of Maharaj Parikshit. And his example was that he doesn't make it. The hero effectively dies. And that was the goal. But mercy. Mercy is the moral. Let the moral of all of our stories be Krishna's mercy. Let us examine our lives in a way where we say, okay, there was a lot of stuff that happened, but did you see Krishna's blessing over here? Please know that I will always be looking out for Krishna's blessings from all of you. Let's try and find them. Let's try and acknowledge them. And then let's try and share them with somebody else. Thank you so much. Ekadasi Devi ki jai, Ekadasi Titi ki jai. All glories to all of our Vaishnavacharyas. All glories to our Sri Krishna Chandra, our best friend. All glories to all of you.
Thank you, Acyuta Gopi Devi, for wonderful summary to our year. We've been through a lot and we're taking it. I really like that one. I've been through a lot and I'm taking it. And there was Krishna's mercy right there. So thank you very much. Okay, does anybody have a pertinent question as an act of hearing? Come on, devotees. I have a pertinent question, Acyuta Gopi. How to not resent Krishna when he makes it really tough, really lonely and miserable outside. I'm looking out the window; it's miserable, and nothing ahead.
Yeah.
How not to resent devotees and Krishna and your own self for being so miserable sometimes?
Man, isn't that a good question? Whoo, that's a good question. And because really, it is so easy to fall into that. I found myself saying at one point, really, I remember thinking, Govinda, you've made things so difficult for me. Every time I turn around, something's difficult. And it's so, like, why are you, like, how is this possible? And at some point, You start to feel like all the people that you thought would be there for you, they take a step back, right? And you start to feel that loneliness and that isolation. And I really actually said to my Lord, I was like, why? How is it that why are you making me so miserable? Why would you want this for me? And then I thought to myself, what a bratty thing to say to somebody. Krishna's been standing there with me, bearing with me, whether I show up or not. Most of the time when I don't show up, he's been standing there this entire time. And I have the nerve to look at the person who has put in the work when everybody else stepped back and said, you know what? You expect me to just be here with you? Like, why would you want to make me so miserable? And I was like, whoa, Acyuta. Yikes. I really had to sit down and have a moment with myself and really reevaluate my priorities. Because I was sitting there thinking, you know what, if I can sit there and say, you know what, being with you, Krishna, just you, that makes me miserable. What the heck am I doing here? What am I doing in bhakti? The goal is to be more in touch with Krishna. So then the more in touch with Krishna I got, the more I said, why are you making me miserable? What kind of ungrateful person am I? How? So putting things in perspective helps me to not put the blame on Krishna. Putting things really into perspective and thinking, I have been a person who has been ungrateful. I have been a person who has not returned calls and not done all these things and all whatever. And I have really been that person who has, I haven't upheld my part of the friendship bargain a lot. There have been places where I'm like, oh, I could have done that better. And then I have to really remember, I've been doing that with Krishna to the max. The maximum degree that anybody could do it, I've been doing it with Krishna. And yet and still, every single day, at every single moment, my friend says, I'm going to show up. You just call, he shows up before we say re. It's unfathomable to me that somebody would have that much love to continue to show up when I can be such a miserable person. And then, even when I'm miserable and I don't even say thank you half the time. I don't go back and say, you know what, that was really cool what you did for me. But still, I have the nerve to next time like, save me. I had put up a video recently that kind of really explained my situation in life. There was a puppy. There was a litter of puppies and a big mom dog, right? And the puppy, there was a little cage and there was a hole. And the puppy shoved its head through the hole of the bars of the cage. And then this puppy started barking so loud, like really like crying out, no, help, 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 help. And the mother dog was really kind of just looking like, but what are you doing? And then the puppy got its head out the bars. It's like, oh. And then it stopped. Looked around like, wow. And then the very next second, the puppy shoved its head back through the bars. No, bark, 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 bark. And I was really kind of struck like, that's me. That's me. I get myself into situations and I'm like, oh no, Govinda, help. Oh, I can't do it. And Govinda's like, did you even try? Like, what? You know the answer to the question. Did you try? Did you even, I'm always like, my mind is getting the best of me. Help. And Govinda's like, did you even chant? Did you even try? Like, I've given you full proof. It's foolproof. This one mantra can give you everything you desire and more. Everyone has said, did you try? And I'm like, but I need help. And then I go and I chant my japa and I'm like, wow, that worked. Would you look at that? And then I just go and get myself into another situation. And then I yell, bloody murder. No, help. How could you do this to me? You're a horrible person. You trouble everybody that's close to you. All I can do is authentically look at myself because like you said, yeah, it's kind of miserable outside. It's not great. And you're stuck in a place and all this stuff. What do? Recently, last week, I was feeling similarly miserable and in anxiety. Just about everything. It wasn't even like, there's a particular anxiety that's come upon me. No, health was fine, everything was good, everything. But, the mind, right? Because everybody is struggling with the senses, which include the mind. Everybody, even up to Lord Brahma. So the mind was doing its thing, attacking me as it does on a daily basis. And I said, okay, I'm going for a japa walk. I'm going to actually take the medicine. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go on a japa walk. And it was one of those days. It was kind of overcast in New York. Temperature was meh. But there's like a walkway trail near where I am. So I walked and I said, I'm going to walk till I feel better. And I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I always want to go on parikrama, and I can never go on parikrama. And I was kind of feeling salty about it, and just kind of like everything was getting on my nerves. I was just like, you know what? Sick of this situation. Can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. And then I thought, Acyuta Gopi, Srila Prabhupada came to New York. He made New York a place of pilgrimage. You could go on pilgrimage if you want to. You can go on parikrama if you want. It's about choices. You can choose if you want. And I said, you know what? We're right. And so I put on lectures at random with Indraduna Maharaj taking us to various places. And I went on parikrama. I was no longer in New York, in Queens, on a pathway. I was then in Julanstali. And there were birds that seemed like, and it really felt like at that point, when I decided to make that shift mentally, it really felt like everything decided to make the shift. Trees looked different. Clouds looked different. The birds looked different. The little squirrels looked like they were walking along the path with me, like, hey, we'll go. And it felt like everything wanted to serve Krishna. So I decided to make that a new practice of mine. When I can't go on parikrama, I'm going to practice. Practice parikram. When I got back home, I kind of looked and my phone was like, you just walked 5 miles. I was like, well, I feel better. Took a 5-mile walk, but I felt better. But it's here. It's here. I can choose to walk through the dirtiest parts of New York and then remember, but Srila Prabhupada walked these streets. This is parikrama. This is parikrama. What did Srila Prabhupada see? These trees are still here, bearing witness to the beginnings of a movement that has changed my existence. It's still here. Krishna is still here. So when I want to be miserable, I want to actively make a shift. And remember that I can practice parikram no matter where I am. Because Vrindavan can descend wherever, right? This is the actual definition of Vrindavan. It can descend wherever Krishna needs it to be. It can expand and contract however Krishna needs it to be. Let it do this with our minds and expand within the heart so that this Vrindavan becomes manifest wherever we are. That's my current, that's going to be my go-to for 2022, is to make these parikramas wherever I am. That's it.
Nice. Yeah, I really like how you said that Srila Prabhupada walked those streets. He handled the blackout, snow, Upper West Side, no devotees. Srila Prabhupada handled it. So why can't we? Thank you, Acyuta Gopi. Bhima Prabhu, unmute yourself.
Hari. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Acyuta Gopi Maharajini. I love the calamity puppy. See, this whole thing can be all summed up in regards to the calamity puppy. And that is, we are here in this earth. We are here. This is not our home. And for some of us, I'll just talk about me. If it wasn't for calamity, I wouldn't learn anything. That if we can remember, oh, Krishna, what are you teaching me here? First of all, pay attention. Second of all, this isn't your home. if we can always remember that we have asked these questions, that's why we're in the movement. We came to a point where we said enough of this suffering, and I want some answers. And Krishna gives us the answers. And more often than not, someone like myself, we're stubborn, or we're just like puppies, so we stick our heads in the cage, out the hole of the cage, and get caught all the time. But yeah, I mean, we have to learn to welcome calamity. We have to really, I mean, I very briefly, I boxed in college, and I was the first couple of years, and I was doing great. And then I faced someone who actually knew what he was doing, and he knocked me out. It was unseen. I was, doing a particular move, throwing right hooks from afar, and he nailed me with a straight right down the middle. So, and I never did that again. I never made that mistake again, because I was knocked right on my butt. So similarly, we do things in our life, or we think things in our life, and we act certain ways in our life, and until we are faced with the repercussions, we keep doing those things in our life. And so I think it can all be summed up with the fact that we're all calamity puppies. And we should learn and grow up and be good dogs. Krishna's good dog. All right, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I really like that term, calamity puppy, now. It really, it captures everything so perfectly. There's like a helplessness of this puppy. There's the calamities, which seem to be like the constitutional position of this puppy. It's true. There was a beautiful quote.
And he's cute.
Yeah.
And he's lovable. That's another thing we always have to remember, that we're lovable. We can't get too down. We have to realize that we're loved. That's the big thing. And no matter what we're going through, if we can always say, well, he loves me, and that's why he's kicking my butt. He wants me to be ye as perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, Christ said. Okay, so how are we going to get perfect unless we get a beat down? The majority of us, some of us can be like our Guru Maharaj, who as a teenager asked himself, what's going on? And then walked to India, and then walked to Vrindavan, took a train to Vrindavan as a kid with no one to guide him. Some of us can get that lucky, and some of us have not lucky. Some of us have been that blessed or been that far along, but most of us, like myself, is more like a calamity puppy. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, absolutely same. And that entire journey, really, I'm just, I'm like, who hitchhikes to a new continent? Like, really, seriously, like, how, but this is the wherewithal that we've been shown. And like you said, I think that is something that I've always, especially, being as small as I am, I'm always like, but I'm cute and lovable. And that's, like you said, that's something that we have to remember. I'm cute and lovable. So Krishna loves us. That mother was not really just like, it wasn't even angry at the puppy. It was really just kind of looking like, I've got like 7 other puppies here, and you, what did you try? So yeah, I think that what you've said is so apt, and it's the exact essence. There was a quote by Yamuna Devi as they celebrate the 10th anniversary of her disappearance, which they put a quote, and it was about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur speaking about the fact that it takes calamity for us to understand our spiritual nature. And she wisely shared realizations on it, saying, yeah, how do you understand that sweetness unless there's something sour, something salty, this counterbalance? She's saying, we have to really look at these calamities as things that show us that counterbalance of, but Krishna's mercy, but Krishna's love, but Krishna's compassion. How do we even know what that looks like without the counterweight? And wisely so, but I still find myself kind of, I love the teachings of Queen Kunti in that chapter. It's gorgeous, beautiful. I still skip over that one verse. I'm like, and we're going to go to the next one. You're so beautiful, like a lotus flower. Everything about you is like a lotus flower. Remember that time, calamities. But also, I remember how you saved me. It's great. You know, I'm still getting to that point where she, this is courageous. This is devotional courage, right? These are real spiritual warriors when they look at the path and they say, you know what? Let the calamities happen. Come at me. Because you know why? Because my Krishna comes and he saves me every single time. My Krishna's mercy is the counterbalance to all of these calamities. And it's not even just a balance. It far outweighs the calamity. Krishna's mercy, getting to see him, getting his mercy, getting his association, seeing my Krishna far outweighs anything else that anybody else could ever do to me. So come at me. Let it happen. I'm still kind of like, but it's really uncomfortable on that side. So have I been taking the opportunity to really experience Krishna's association? Have I been looking at a pandemic and going, but my Krishna showed up so big. I developed such a deeper relationship with Krishna that my association with him is so much deeper than it was even before this pandemic that, you know what? Another round? Okay. You want to go on lockdown? Go on lockdown. I'll just keep speaking. Because the pastimes get sweeter and sweeter and sweeter from here. Or am I sitting there going, I'm so tired of whatever this is? And it's not to say that we won't get tired. Of course we will. Kunti Devi was crying profusely. She said it many times. Pahi Govinda. She's like, look, save me and my sons. This is a problem. But she also knew. She knew without a doubt that the saving was going to occur. So I hope that even though I am a calamity puppy, I hope, like you said, that I can remember that I'm cute and lovable and the saving is going to occur no matter what. Whatever that looks like, the saving is going to happen.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Wonderful. I really love the Q&A session. Acyuta Gopi, thank you so much. Bhima Prabhu, thank you. And thank you to each and every one of you, our dear calamity puppies. You're all cute. You're all lovable. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada handled New York. He handled January. So can we. Srila Prabhupada loves us. We're his puppies, right? We're Srila Prabhupada's puppies.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna, everybody. See you tomorrow. Very well.